right, Reverend Arnie Pickholtz, coming to you with an economic idea that's just too good to believe. It's called supply-side economics, and maybe you've heard it called Trickle-Down Theory. Let's take a close look at Trickle-Down Theory and what it can do for you. By definition, this economic theory purports that benefits, usually tax cuts for business, capital gains, and dividends that are designated to help the rich, will trickle down to the rest of us. The assumption here is that these same high earners or businesses are in some way actually driving the economy and will use the extra money they saved on tax cuts to invest in expanding their business interests and thereby increase employment, etc. Plus, investors will have more capital to buy more companies or stocks. Banks will increase business lending, and all those happy workers will spend their wages and drive growth in the marketplace and the economy. Sounds good, doesn't it? Supply-side economics is slightly different than trickle-down theory, in that tax cuts in general, whether for business or workers, stimulate growth. In order to prove these theories correct, or at the very least plausible, the Laffer Curve, a statistical model, is used to show how tax cuts provide a multiplying effect over time to create enough growth to replace the revenue the government would lose by cutting interest rates. Simply put, the larger the tax base in a prosperous country, the larger the expansion of government revenue. Well, it sounds okay so far, but Laffer warned that the effect works best when taxes are in the prohibitive range. That is, a range that goes from 100% tax range to one somewhere in the middle, say 50%. If the tax rate falls below this range, then cuts will only lower the government's revenue and will not stimulate growth. So does this really work? Ronald Reagan used this theory in the 80s with mixed results. He lowered the top tax rates for those earning over $100,000 from 70% to 28%. He also cut the corporate taxes from 46% to 40%. However, he also increased government spending by 2.5% per year. This tripled the federal debt, with most of the money going to defense. George W. Bush tried it in 2001. It ended a recession, but unemployment rose to 6%. In Reagan's case, trickle-down theory should have helped people at all levels. But really, the exact opposite happened. The rich income rose by 80%, and after-tax income for the rest of us rose only 6% for the bottom fifth of wage earners. Basically, you could interpret this as the rich taking care of the rich. Republicans hang on to trickle-down theory as a viable tax option. Donald Trump proposed cutting taxes for the wealthy, and as far as we can tell, he has not paid taxes for long periods of time. Does he really care about a tax cut? Well, you bet. Plus, he wants an ending to taxes on capital gains and dividends for people making less than $50,000 a year. This actually could be helpful if the average person had a stock portfolio or bought and sold property for capital gain. Corporate tax, on the other hand, would be reduced to 15%, and this would stimulate growth down the economic chain for all taxpayers. And now the other side. To paraphrase Will Rogers in 1932, the Republicans only started thinking about the little guy when they wanted to get elected. The money went to the top in the hopes that it would trickle down to the needy. But in fact, money can trickle up. Give it to the people at the bottom, and the people at the top will have it before nightfall. Bill Clinton, in a town hall debate, said, "What I want you to understand is that the national debt is not the only cause of declining economic conditions in America. It's because America has not invested in its people. It's because we have not grown. It's because we've had 12 years of trickle-down economics. We've gone from first to 12th in the world of wages. We've had 4 years where we've produced no private sector jobs. Most people are working harder for less money than they were making 10 years ago." There has been much debate about this strategy from all sides. And there's much evidence that wealth does not trickle down from the rich to the poor, period. That's the latest conclusion of new research from the International Monetary Fund. In fact, researchers found that when the top earners in society make more money, it actually slows down economic growth. On the other hand, when poorer people can earn more, Society as a whole benefits. The researchers calculated that when the richest 20% of society increase their income by 1 percentage point, the annual rate of growth shrinks by nearly 0.1% within 5 years. By contrast, when the lowest 20% of earners see their income grow by 1 percentage point, the rate of growth increases by nearly 0.4% over the same period. So we have at least two theories of how we should handle taxes and economics. Under the Clinton administration, there was a substantial increase in taxes that ended the budget deficit and created a surplus. The Clinton years showed the effects of a large tax increase that Clinton pushed through in his first year. It fell almost exclusively on upper-income taxpayers. Clinton's fiscal 1994 budget also contained some spending restraints. An equally, if not more powerful influence was the booming economy and huge gains in the stock markets, the so-called dot-com bubble, which brought in hundreds of millions in unanticipated tax revenue from taxes on capital gains and rising salaries. So you decide, trickle down or trickle up. Right now, the deficit rests at about $587 billion. That means that this household is spending much more than it's taking in. If this was your household, how long would you last? This is the Right Reverend Arnie Pickholtz, making your day just a little bit better.